In simple terms, inflation is making your money worth less. So not only are you paying income tax, inheritance tax, value-added tax, and a complex myriad of other taxes, the government is so piss poor at balancing their books, they print money to fill the gap, making the money in your pockets and bank accounts worth less.
Everybody just assumed that's how it was worked. That Alan Greenspan was the maestro, and all he needed to do to create this awesome economy was to lower the federal funds rate by a quarter basis point here or there. And if he needed to step on the brakes, he needed to raise the quarter basis point. And you sit back and you think about it and you think, well, how ridiculous is that? Raising or lowering a short-term money rate by a quarter basis point here or there controlled the entire monetary system, therefore the entire economy? No, it's ridiculous. And so it was this great moderation, no one really able to explain it, what was really happening. And therefore, especially people in the financial services industry, assigning that great moderation to the maestro, Alan Greenspan. And therefore, it became a combination of self-reinforcing, lack of knowledge, economic and monetary illiteracy, plus, recency and confirmation bias. And recency bias in the respect that since nothing bad had happened, therefore nothing bad will happen, which, of course, when you think there's this maestro behind the curtain controlling everything, it encourages risk-taking. It encourages massive risk-taking, especially when you go for prolonged periods where it seems like nothing bad can ever go wrong because nothing bad has gone wrong. So that's where a lot of that credit creation came from. It was from misreading the situation in the 80s and 90s and the middle 2000s. By the way, we had this uncontrolled monetary expansion that had started back in the 50s, especially in this offshore space where nobody looks at all in any respect to what's going on in this global dollar system, because why should we? Everything is perfect. Everything is awesome up until August 2007.
Is the Fed going to print us into hyperinflation like everybody is so assumptive of?
No, absolutely not. The Fed is a sideshow. The Fed, again, because it can't define money, because it can't print money, it doesn't define money. What it prints is our bank reserves, which are one form of liability or an asset from the perspective of the banking system. Where, even if you consider it to be money, all it does is sit on a bank's balance sheet. So if a bank reserve, no matter how many they're quote unquote printed by the Federal Reserve, if the bank does nothing with it, it just sits there. It goes nowhere. So again, we're back to realizing that this is a bank-centric system. And so if the banking system has enormous problems that come first and supersede whatever the Federal Reserve wants, it doesn't matter what the Fed does. The Fed is powerless. It's inept. It's a side. What is a global currency? What does it actually do? I think a lot of people think, well, it allows us to price oil in dollars, for example. That's not really what it does. It's the effective grease behind the wheel that accomplishes a whole bunch of things that make the global modern economy work. And it's essentially, it's a medium of exchange for very different systems to be able to translate and talk to each other and transact with each other. It's the ability for global, not just global trade, but global fund flows, global investment flows that are very good things, very positive things. Globalization has taken a negative connotation over the last dozen years because we've seemingly lost the benefits for it. But there are good things that come from trade and monetary flows. The problem comes in with how do you actually meet those needs in a monetary medium?
In an ideal world, we neither want an artificially strong dollar or an artificially weak dollar. We want a dollar that is equilibrium. So we want one that is competitive, that gives Americans a lot of purchasing power internationally, but that also is not overpriced so that our products and services become uncompetitive and too expensive in the global marketplace. Because that eventually corrects itself to the downside, even though it can take decades. And we're kind of at the, probably getting close to the tail end of that.